What I would like to do today is I would like to dispel the myth that the pharmaceutical industry is in the business of health and healing. Because in fact, what the pharmaceutical industry is in the business of doing is disease maintenance and symptoms management. They are not in the business to cure cancer, to cure Alzheimer's, to cure heart disease, because if they were, they would be in the business of putting themselves out of business.
The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. They bring it on our streets and get you addicted. Then the next thing you know, you're being locked up and convicted. And only for the rich, they get turned loose and acquitted. High treason and espionage, only elites are permitted. The biggest gang in our country's the feds, and they ain't even part of the government, they just lend us the bread. Federalizing our police could leave us all dead, and have all your kids sent to FEMA camps for re-ed. You'll get nothing but real from me. They don't care for our country. To them it's all about profits and the love of the money. When there's kids behind our borders going third world hungry, when the parents turn to prescriptions and ended up junkies. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest.
Yo, been sick to my stomach from the dumb shit. Fuck the government, they can suck it. Candidates can't face their own race. Snakes in sheep's wool. Public's blind to the lies these cheapskates pull. Vote red or blue, police state still pulls the trigger at you. Hey bro, you fucking move my shirt off. Vote for change, I vote to end the office oath and get cutthroat till the rats get spoke. You can't see shit when your mind's full of smoke. Distract to detract and derail from the facts so the bills get passed. Pocket cash from the vast mass and silent citizens fighting back till societies clash. It's a sick game these rodents play. Encourage degradation every day. Time's speeding up so they're trying to move faster. None of the running candidates can win the race. Didn't see this last year. They'll run us into the ground and crash here. Stop the questions and you won't need answers. I say question every motive of all these sick bastards. Remember, we're only slaves cause we choose the masters.
The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. I do this for you, cause I care about our children. And if you knew any better, you might take the time to listen. They control everything, down to your favorite search engine. Your mind has been poisoned, time to turn off the television. But only through the media will the lies be propagated. And you're a fool to know the truth and tolerate it. Their only goal is to leave our country dominated. So you should feel obligated to not let your rights be confiscated. And I don't gotta tell you about all the corruption and biological assassination for population reduction. I can't sit back and watch our nation's destruction. So if I can touch one mind, then at least I'm doing something. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to affect the wars and the death and neglect and unrest. The drugs, the oppressed intellect to